Hello everyone, and welcome to my brand new channel, Balancing the Books. My name is Victoria, and I'm a tax accountant who absolutely loves reading all different types of books. But with the launch of Onyx Storm happening on Tuesday, and with this book having absolutely swept me up in madness and obsession with Fourth Wing and Iron Flame from the second that I read them, I thought that I would start out my new channel by talking about some of my theories surrounding this book. This video is part 2 of my theories. If you want to hear some of my thoughts regarding Violet and Andarna, then go ahead and be subscribed, and then after you watch this video, go check out part 1. The third part is going to be all of my signet theories for Onyx Storm. But this part is going to be talking about some different characters and theories that I have regarding them. Now, one of the things that I want for this channel is to be very discussion based. And so please leave all of your thoughts in the comments down below, as I'd love to get a dialogue going with anyone who's interested in these books. Now, obviously, since I'm talking about both books in regards to the third book, there will be spoilers involving both the 2 published books, the chapters that we've seen already released from Onyx Storm, and then everything that I've seen in various interviews of Rebecca Yarros. So with that, let's jump into part 2 and talk about some of the various characters that may play a role in Onyx Storm. Now, the first very brief character that I want to touch on is Xaden's mother, as well as the theory that some people have that his cousin is not really his cousin, but his brother. So with Xaden's mom, I do think that at some point Xaden's mom is going to come into the books. I have wondered if perhaps Xaden's mom is going to end up potentially being one of the venin, perhaps even the silver-haired venin that seems to be able to pop in and out of nowhere. And also, when it comes to Bhodi, no, I don't think that he is going to be Xaden's brother, because Xaden talks about the fact that it is his dad's sister, who is Bhodi's mom. And so I would find it unlikely that Finn Ryerson would have fathered a child with his sister or fathered a child with his wife and then given it to his sister. I don't think either one of those things would have happened. That does not seem fitting with his character at all, and this is also not Game of Thrones. Plus, in one of the chapters, from Xaden's perspective, we get a glimpse into him talking about on how much that Bhodi looks like what his aunt looked like specifically. And so yes, obviously their family, their cousins are going to share a resemblance. I don't think that they are brothers, however. It is possible though that Xaden's mom, after she left, if she is not a venin, which I actually really don't think is likely, but I kind of like the idea of that. I also think that another possible route for Xaden's mother is that he does have a sibling that is a half sibling by his mother, and that we may encounter them at some point. But speaking of siblings, there are a couple of theories that have been going around the internet talking about the possibility of the original 3 brothers from the story that Violet had, where one of them becomes venin, and this either relating to the king's 3 sons or relating to the 3 Sorrengail siblings. Now, I'm going to get to the king's 3 sons in a second, but I'm going to start with the Sorrengail siblings. I do not think that Mira is going to be a venin. I think that it would be interesting if Brennan became a venin. There's some reasoning behind this. First off, we have Jack Barlow, villain, had an orange dragon. We have Varish, villain, had an orange dragon. Well, Brennan's dragon is an orange dragon. Now, that doesn't mean that he is an evil character, and a lot of people are super upset about this. But for him to be a sort of resurrected character, we thought he was dead, turns out he really wasn't dead. Well, wouldn't it be interesting if he ended up being evil? If he ended up becoming a venin and being a venin? I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I think it could be a very interesting twist. The other theory that I don't particularly like, because you can't be bringing characters back from the dead every single book, then it would become predictable. And that is that the king's sons, Halden, Alic, and Eric/Cam, are the three brothers they're being sort of prophesized from the book to modern day. And we don't really know enough about Halden to believe that he would be a venin. He knows venin exists, but from what his youngest brother has told us, he either doesn't care, isn't really doing anything, so doesn't really seem particularly interested one way or the other. And then there is Alic that Xaden supposedly killed. I think Xaden would know if he killed the guy or not. And this was before Xaden had his powers. So I think that Xaden absolutely killed this guy. I don't think there's any chance that he is still alive. And I don't think that he's a venin. I think that that is just reaching too far. I think he's probably dead. But I do think that Halden is going to end up being more significant, not because he's a venin, but because I think that he's one of Violet's love interests. So we know from Violet that she had 2 previous relationships before Xaden. And we know, based on a comment that Xaden made about them possibly being infantry, and Violet saying that that was pretty close on the mark, and her being at the War College, that it's possible that we are looking at Halden, because we also know from, it was either a journal entry or it was information that was given, that the kids who are typically the heirs do not go to the Rider Squadron. They go to the infantry because they only serve for a short amount of time, and then they get a title and they get some military stuff, and then they start taking over their leadership duties within the family and within their seats of power. So that would lead us again to believe that it is possible that we are going to see Halden be one of Violet's exes. Based on Eric not being overly thrilled with his brother, we can also put that with a comment from the mistakenly early released chapters of Onyx Storm, where we get a little tidbit of Lilith telling Violet's dad that Violet doesn't have good taste in men. And if Eric is so just kind of over his brother, Lilith is a very smart woman, and Lilith knows that venin exists. So the fact that Halden doesn't really seem to care about the venin, he could be kind of spoiled, and he could not be the best potential leader. And so as someone who is actually talented like Lilith, she might not think that much of Halden because he may not actually be that talented. We know from Violet that the king wears a ton of medals that he never earned and doesn't deserve, and it could be that his oldest son is the same way. Also, while I don't like to be involved in drama, I love watching and hearing about relationship drama. And so the reality TV person that lives inside of me very much wants it to be Violet's love, the heir of Tyrrendor, versus heir of Navarre, and sort of see Xaden lose a bit of control that way, because I think that there could be a lot of very interesting dynamics that happen, a lot of interesting consequences that could happen. And just a lot of entertaining drama that could happen if it ends up that Halden is one of Violet's exes. Because Xaden isn't really threatened by anyone, and so having someone like that could prove to be an interesting threat if he actually is a competent heir to Navarre. Now, I mentioned the fact at the beginning with Xaden's mom that there's a part of me that's like, hey, maybe she's the silver-haired venin. Well, the other part of me says, if we've already met this character, that it could be Lyra. So Lyra was one of the first 6 riders, and she was very powerful. We know from those early released chapters that there is a quote talking about on how the first 6 most powerful signets are only seen every 100 or so years, and they haven't all been seen together since the first 6. So the first 6 were very, very, very powerful. And this venin is obviously very powerful because she just disappears into thin air. Perhaps she is a distance wielder. I'll get to my theory on distance wielding in the signet area. But we also know that the venin have runes. Runes that modern people wouldn't know anything about. And then we also know that there's a quote in Iron Flame where it talks about how Lyra wanted the first 6 to share the information about the wards, and she was the only one who did, and wanting to share the wards cost her everything. This is a very interesting thing. I will get into this wording in a minute regarding another character, but I think that it could be very interesting. Did Lyra, in order to make the wards happen, or in order to give wards to someone else potentially, did she turn venin? Did she have to draw in order to protect the wards and protect the information with regards to how they were created? Now that brings us to Naolin. This was Taryn's previous rider, and it is said that while he was able to heal Brennan, put enough power into Brennan to keep him alive, that it cost him everything. Now this is assumed to mean his life, but some people think it could mean that he's venin. Again, I don't think that every single dead character is a venin. I don't think that necessarily Alic is a venin because he died. I don't think that Lilith Sorengale, as I mentioned in part 1 of this video, is a venin. I don't think that Violet's dad is necessarily a venin. But this would be the closest thing to talk about, because we aren't necessarily told that he's for sure dead. Taryn says that we won't talk about the one that came before. I don't want to lose another rider because they don't know their limits. At the same time, the wording of both of those I think is significant, that in both cases it said that it cost them everything. It could just mean that it cost them their lives. And I think that that is probably the most likely, not that they are venin. I like the idea of some of these characters being venin. That doesn't mean I find it realistic. And we won't know for sure until we get through the end of the series. But reasons that I think that Naolin might not be venin is that we know that dragons, or at least we believe that we know, that dragons only bond one rider at a time, and we know that venin riders stay bonded to their dragons, as Jack was still bonded to his dragon. So just because they're venin doesn't mean that they are not bonded to their dragon. We know that Xaden still has the power of shadows from Sigale. He's still able to channel from Sigale. So I don't think he's still alive, because Violet is definitely very bonded to Taryn, and I feel like that she would have another bond to another rider other than just Xaden if Taryn were still bonded to another rider. That being said, I think that he probably was more than just a friend to Brennan, as we see that Lilith gives all of her power, burns out to save her children. We see Violet almost burn out both at the Battle of Resin and at the Battle of Basgiath, because she is trying to protect Xaden most of all, but also all the other people that she loves so deeply. And Violet is someone who loves very, very deeply and cares about the people in her life very, very deeply. We see Xaden turn venin to protect Violet and to save her life. So I think the likelihood that Naolin turned venin in order to save Brennan's life, and Xaden turned venin to save Violet's life, I think that'd be too many people turning venin to save the person that they love's life. That's just my personal theory. So again, I talk through these theories because I go round and round in my head on which I think is the case, because I can see the case for both. But overall, I don't think that we know the silver-haired venin yet. I don't think it's Xaden's mom. I don't think that Naolin is a venin either. I also don't think that Lilith or that Violet's dad were venin. But speaking of Violet's dad, let's talk about Violet's dad for a second. Is he alive? Is he dead? I don't think that Rebecca Yarros is going to resurrect every single character that we think is dead. Resurrecting Brennan was shocking because we thought he was dead. Turns out he's alive because he faked his death. We thought Jack was dead. Turns out he's alive because he's a venin. I don't think that we're going to see really many more, if any more, characters resurrected, because those two are so shocking that we would now be expecting a character to be resurrected. And that just doesn't seem like that's gonna happen to me, because she is a very interesting writer and she likes to keep plot twisting. And if you keep bringing people back every book, that's not exactly exciting, or allows you to really truly believe that people are dead, because then you'll think that anyone could be alive at any point. That being said, I don't think that her dad died of natural causes. I think that her dad was murdered, and I think that he was murdered because of stuff that he found out in his research. Who is very interested in his research? Who has threatened to kill people because secrets die with the people that keep them? Who is it that placed a rune lure box in resin? Dain Atos' dad. Colonel Atos. I think that he is the one that killed Violet's dad. I think Violet's dad figured out stuff with his Feathertail research, figured out stuff related to the venin that he was not supposed to know. He obviously knew venin existed. He obviously knew the scribes are the ones who changed it. And whatever information he knows, I think is critical, and I think it's in his research. I don't think that we will necessarily find his research in Onyx Storm. It's possible, because we do really need to know what's in that research. And Rebecca Yarros did post a Sorengale for Truth, which I'll get into that a little bit in my signet video, but I think that that could potentially be leading to the truth that got Violet's dad killed, and that Violet's dad was killed, that he didn't actually die of natural causes. I think that that could be the truth that it is referring to, and the truth that is in his research. Now, what about Daddy Atos? I think that if there is a character that we have met that is venin and we didn't expect it, or that we didn't see evidence of them being venin but them still being venin, I think potentially that that could be Daddy Atos. We know that he definitely put that rune box out at resin. He emptied the post. He made sure that there would be no witnesses so that he could kill Xaden Ryerson. We know that he has no problem killing people that are supposedly his friends. He's tried to kill Violet multiple times. And we know that venin are able to do the rune boxes. Obviously, there are runes that power the wyvern, so people who are venin know how to do runes. And given that Jack Barlow placed so many, it would lead me to believe that perhaps he knows how to make runes, as the venin are able to communicate to each other. And so maybe venin are the ones who are making the runes, or maybe it's that Colonel Atos was able to get those rune boxes to Jack to make, to try and lead the venin towards the veil. So that I'm definitely leaning towards. He is definitely an evil character. And so I also could see, given how much people hate Dain, and how much that Rebecca says he's not the evil character that you think he is. He obviously is getting a redemption arc. I think that he somewhat redeemed himself by the fact that when he saw Violet fighting the wyvern and fighting the venin, he helped kill Varish. He went with them to Orisha. He is, I think, someone who he is turning a corner, but he needs some sort of really big act, I think, for readers to forgive him. And having to kill his dad, who is a venin, would be a very big act that I think would bring a lot of readers back to liking Dain. And on the subject of Dain, there are people who think that he is the one who brought down the wards at Montserrat. Now, first off, that would mean that he has to know about the alloy daggers. He has to know about the wyvern and the venin. He has to know that they'd bring down the wards. I don't see Dain bringing down the wards with Violet being there and Violet being in danger. I also don't think that he knew about the wyvern, the venin, and the alloy. Why do I think that? Because he was so shocked by what he saw in Violet's memories. Now, it could just be that he's shocked that his dad tried to murder a whole bunch of cadets, but I really don't think that that's the case. I think it is the fact that it was the wyvern and the venin and the alloy daggers. I don't think that he knew necessarily that that's what powered the wards, or that that's what was bringing the wards down. Additionally, people are like, yeah, he left after that conversation with Mira on the steps. Only, it says that he went back inside. that to me says that he went back inside the room with everyone else from the squad that was there. People are like, oh, he was so out of breath when he was running up the stairs, and that means that he was probably running down in the armory. People would have noticed if he was in the armory. Even with him being Colonel Atos' son, I think that they would have noticed something like that, and he couldn't have gotten down there, taken the daggers out in the time and gotten back out of the fortress to bring down the wards. There's no way there was enough time for that in the few seconds that they had a conversation on the stairs without him present. I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that he's one of the moles. And then finally, what about Garric? What is his signet? We don't know. And with that, I believe we're gonna find out what that is in Onyx Storm, but I am going to leave off on signets here and break for part 3. So make sure that you are subscribed. That one should already be up. I'm trying to get all 3 of these videos up at the same time. That way they're at least broken apart for you to watch in smaller increments, but that they're also already available ahead of the launch of Onyx Storm on Tuesday. So with that, make sure to be subscribed, hit the like video, and comment down below what your thoughts are on these various theories. I would love to have a massive dialogue going in the comments of everyone talking about their theories. So with that, I will see you guys in part 3.